Welcome back to Finding Fashion. Finally, an eco-fashion podcast that isn't clinically depressing. I'm your host, Pojo. Welcome, you guys. It's so great to see you again. And thank you so much for joining us today. A quick reminder, this podcast is powered by Galaxy. It's a new way to source your favorite fashion pieces, whether you're into vintage, upcycled fashion, or just supporting small businesses and creatives. Galaxy is the place to find your fashion. So if you're interested, you could check it out on their site, shopgalaxy.com. We're going to have all the links below. Join us. Later in the episode, we're actually going to take a break from the convo and spotlight an awesome creator on Galaxy, so stay tuned for that. All right, you guys. On this episode of Finding Fashion, I would really recommend you whip out a notebook because you're going to get schooled in some way, in some form. And I'm very excited because, I'm always really excited. Listen, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't exciting to me. But I have to say, who we have in studio today is one of my absolute favorite people on the internet. She is putting together some would call an encyclopedia of fashion on a TikTok account, like everything you need in your hand. I can't even begin to explain. She got me so inspired to wear the biggest bow I've ever sourced in my entire life on the top of my head. We've got a fashion writer and trend forecaster in the house. She's building a well-researched encyclopedia of fashion on her TikTok page, and she's predicted some of the major trends we are seeing on runways today. Yes, today. It is Fashion Month, ending Fashion Month. So we are seeing it today. She's also very into fashion sustainability, and we can see that through her resale efforts online. You know her, you love her. You might call her an old loser in Brooklyn, but I think that title does not do her justice. It's Mandy. Welcome to Finding Fashion. Thank you for being here.
Hey guys, so good to be here. What a great intro. Oh my goodness.
I was serious. When I tell you, like, your page is one of those pages where I can't say this happens all the time, and we've been very lucky with some awesome guests on the show, but you seriously have schooled me in more ways than one. Like, every time I'm watching a video from you, it's either you're inspiring with your outfits, you're telling me about a show that I just missed, or you're giving like the rundown on things that I just wouldn't have seen otherwise. Like, you just have such an eye for what you do, and I'm just so grateful to have you on the show because you're seriously an inspiration to what we're doing.
That's so nice.
No, of course. No, thank you. Where do we even begin? I guess I really want to start with the rundown on like everything you do, because it's really hard to put into words. If you couldn't tell, I was a little flustered even trying to explain what's going on here. How did you get started as Mandy in all the things you do? And did you always work in fashion? Are you from New York? Like, give me the gist. Give me the rundown.
No, simply no. I grew up in a really small rural area in New England where there's like nothing.
Wow.
There's, the closest city is like, an hour and a half away. So when I was growing up, I was mostly thrifting, because that was kind of like fun for my friends and I. And it was also, for context, I'm 30, and thrifting was not cool when we were like teenagers. That comes with like a lot of classism and elitism within like secondhand and vintage, which I'm so happy that has been completely, I think, shifted in recent years. But that's kind of what me and my friends would do when we were bored. There was a Savers nearby, so that's kind of how I got into fashion at kind of a young age. But I never really thought that I would be able to work in fashion, just because, it's kind of a industry built on sort of like nepotism, but not just nepotism. It's more like you need to know someone, you need to do unpaid internships. That used to be how it was. Again, I think it's changing slowly, but that's kind of, I just never really thought I'd be able to do it. And I've been in forecasting in several different industries for the last 6 going on 7 years, and was able to pivot by building my skill set, essentially.
Wow.
So I would, if anyone feels like it's hopeless and they want to work in fashion, I would really recommend building your skill set in different industries and then being able to pivot later on in your career, because that's kind of the gist of what I did.
Yeah.
And I think just like putting your work out there. But basically, to answer your question, how I started on TikTok, I guess it was like, I first started talking about fashion around a year ago. Like right now, it was in like February, March of last year, which is crazy that it's only been a year. And I feel like my life has just like drastically changed by having this platform. But I basically like joined TikTok, and the only fashion content that I was seeing a lot was trends I hate. And I just can I swear?
You can swear.
I fucking hate that content because it's like, okay, everyone has an opinion, of course.
Of course.
Like, you should have an opinion, of course. But it's kind of like, what kind of message are we like sending here where it's like, I hate everything that's trendy just because like it is trendy. So I feel like I started making content and like little trend reports to kind of like debunk this like negative vibe I was feeling on fashion TikTok. And my page just kind of grew from there. And it really pivoted into more like commentary and criticism. Like, I wouldn't call myself a fashion critic necessarily. That's not really like my area of expertise, but you know, I won't be shy to like critique something that's going on in the industry or a show or whatever, but always trying to like put a somewhat positive spin on it, because I just really don't like resonate with negative content or like being mean to people or like being rude about people's styles. So like, if I see content like that still to this day, it's just like an automatic block.
No, for sure.
I don't know. Like, I think TikTok can be like a really toxic place. And I know people don't like my content, but I know I can stand behind that it's positive.
Yeah, I think analyst is like the perfect term for what you do, because you really are, every breakdown you've done, even, exactly, like the criticisms that you'd like say are criticisms are not to a point where it's about you're wrong, I'm right. And I think that's the tone on TikTok with so much of fashion content in general. I know, I mean, we've talked to some creators too who get so much criticism based off what they wear, and people will just tell you like, this is wrong, this looks wrong. I'm sure you get outfit criticism as well, but the irony is like, it's just not about that. It's more about like education. And I think you fill these really important pockets of fashion like that don't have coverage, you know, like we see it. I mean, you and I would see it in New York. We have like so many different like communities surrounding fashion, like the grungy communities that are like into like archival fashion, and these people that collect, and like that's super cool, but it's hard to see it really tangibly in front of you on the internet. And I think you do such a great job at that. Like, seriously, you kill
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. So you were interested in fashion though a year ago. So was it just like one day you're like, you know what? Like, I've been researching and I want to share what I've found, or how did it really pivot into fashion? Because I mean, from multiple industries, and like you were saying before, I agree, the barrier of entry is so intense, and especially like when you try to get into this space, like how was that pivot for you?
Oh no, I've wanted to work in fashion since I was like a little kid. Like, I always knew that was my like end goal, my North Star. But so when I graduated college, I started working at a really small, like tiny local magazine.
Oh, cool.
Writing more like lifestyle about the area, because it was like a local kind of magazine, and that was what all their content centered around.
Right.
So that was my first like writing gig. And then I was like, this isn't like, I don't want to write about this stuff. So I got an entry-level customer service job at a huge tech company in Boston, and was able to pivot into my first analyst position like 2 or 3 months later. And I've been working as an analyst for 6 years in various different industries. So I went from e-com, like tech company e-com, to beer, which was really, really fun, kind of random, but I learned so much from that job. And then to beauty. Wow. And then I knew if I could get into the beauty industry, I'd probably have an easier time getting into the fashion industry, because they're not necessarily like interchangeable, but once you get there I think in New York City, it's easier because the pool of people are kind of like, they cross over.
Oh yeah, rubbing shoulders all the time, for sure.
So beauty people will go to fashion people will go to beauty, and you know, that's just kind of like how the industries work here.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, like this is my way to get in. So no, I've been playing the long game for like 12 years.
Wow.
For literally, I mean, it probably could have happened faster, but I didn't have like a lot of money until, and I still don't have a lot of money, but I didn't really have like the money to support that move from New England to New York until my like mid-20s. So I think everyone, like, the point is, I mean, like my career, my path has not been linear at all. And that's so valid.
Yeah.
And actually, I think a lot of career fashion folks do judge that. So, but that's something I am very, very, very transparent with on my page. It's like one of my pinned videos, because like, I think people need to hear that, where it's like, you don't, like, as soon as you graduate college, you don't need to work all these unpaid internships. There are other ways. There's not just one, like, this is how you do it type of way. And I feel like people need to hear that.
I think that's really, really important. And so when did TikTok really become like that, I guess, foundation of, you know, your content? Because were you doing the research outside and like doing the writing first and then started pivoting to TikTok?
Yeah. So my first writing gig was, let's see, that was what, 7-ish years ago. And I kind of like, again, like kind of gave up on it a little bit because it felt like, again, something so far away. And I think when you get into your career, you know, you're starting to make like more money than you did as an entry level person. And then you get used to sort of like that level of income and lifestyle and whatever. And then it's like very hard to think about starting over. So that's sort of like where I was. And I was actually really, really happy with my job in beauty because I was a product marketing manager. So I was essentially like researching all of these like beauty trends. I worked in hair care specifically.
Oh, cool.
So that was so fun. And, you know, getting to research into like different hair types and what their needs were and like different ingredients that were trending and just like really fun, interesting things like that. But then COVID happened and I was part of the layoffs, like the mass COVID layoffs. And I was like, well, fuck. Like I literally felt like I lost my dream job, like completely heartbroken. And up until that point, I was really like somebody who drank the corporate Kool-Aid. Like I forget what like event it was at my company, but I won like most school spirit essentially because I was that girl that like pushed this brand on my Instagram with like 500 followers, like any chance I would get. And then that really changed for me when I was laid off because I'm like, well, I just lost my favorite job ever. I feel like I have nothing without my work. And that's like, if anyone's going through that, like, please find something else to make you happy. That it doesn't have to be tied to money. It doesn't have to be tied to success. Just find something to make you happy because like that stuff can just, the rug can be pulled out from underneath you. I excelled in that role and I was still laid off. So that's when I downloaded TikTok for fun because I didn't know who I was without my work. I really just wanted to be distracted while I was like on the job hunt. And I started shit posting basically because that's kind of where my username comes from too. Like I downloaded the app, didn't think anything would happen, and now I'm basically stuck with it.
I love it. Wait, was that? So that was kind of just like a shit posting name. You were like, old loser in Brooklyn.
It was actually Old Stoner in Brooklyn, but then I got banned because they didn't want me to have that in my name, so I changed it slightly.
Oh my god!
This is when I like first downloaded it.
We also didn't realize how family friendly TikTok was going to take it. They were like, Stoner, you're done. You're done. You're out of here.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
They did not want that.
Oh no.
But my first, also, if anyone's curious, my first video is kind of tied to that. If it's still up, they didn't take that down yet. So
there we go.
Have fun.
Deep dive.
Searching that, but yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then again, I ended up being on. I mean, I never thought that like. I didn't even find fashion TikTok for a long time. I thought it was just like, you know, a dancing, like shit posting, funny app.
Yeah.
And then there was, I feel like I maybe saw one or two more fashion commentators like around a year ago. And I was like, wait, like this is what I like to do. This was kind of my old world. It was a little different because I was more putting together like presentations, but that's kind of, I use the green screen effect. That's my style.
Yeah.
When I'm filming, and I'm like, this is kind of like a PowerPoint, but better.
100%.
And I'm the text instead of having to type it on PowerPoint or Prezi or whatever. Like this is it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And I do actually take my page quite seriously. I treat it like my resume. Yeah. And look what's happened. Like that has really worked for my career and for my credibility. But that's kind of how I treated it at the beginning, and I still do. But I really saw this like lack of commentators who were coming at the angle of analysis and sort of like understanding the cultural and socioeconomical reasons why things are the way they are. Right. And, you know, people can say like, this is trending, go buy it. That's really not what my page is about. And I feel like, if you don't like actually hear what I'm saying, it could probably be taken that way. And I understand that criticism, and it's valid because a lot of people are like touchy about trends. I made a video around a year ago that went viral, kind of explaining the concept of a micro trend, and now I see people using that like in complete wrong way. So things can like backfire on you in that way too. Like chuggy, like the original meaning.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I did not come up with chuggy, for the record. Somebody asked me that in my live the other day, and I'm like, no.
You're like, I'm not that girl. Sorry.
But also I feel bad for that person because it just completely got taken out of hand.
Oh yeah.
Micro trend, I don't think it went that far, but people use it in, like, just to describe things they don't like.
Oh, I hear it all the time. I mean, but I have to say it has created a really healthy separation between like what fast fashion pushes through very genuine micro trends. And I think those types of like foundations of fashion, like I think especially fast fashion, like feeds on micro trends versus like watching the new Chanel Couture show where like things are a little bit more substantial and you're not going to forget about it in a month. It's actually archived now and it's going to be there forever. Like, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but like when I go to the thrift store and I see a Shein piece, I like get really upset because I realize how quickly these things cycle out. And I think that's really what your point was too with that, is just like to identify, like, it's not about criticizing people that like a micro trend or whatever. It's more so like understanding that like some things have longevity and some things don't. And if it's having like a little like current and it's having its moment, then like, okay, it's there. But I don't think you've ever been like so critical of people. And like, especially, I mean, I'm shouting out brands right now that maybe, I'm name dropping and targeting a certain demographic of people that shop there. But my point isn't that. It's more so like a mindfulness around what we're consuming. And I think you've actually just pushed that over anything, regardless of where people are shopping. It's just about things that they care about and like want to hold on to more. Yeah.
And like, I mean, all my trend reports and predictions and stuff like really are coming at the angle of arming people with knowledge, right?
100%.
Like, and sometimes people will message me and be like, I didn't even know like that this was a trend or was something that would be trending. And, I am going to kind of like avoid it, I think, because I've been, feeling like I need to buy this. And it's sort of like those comments, it's like, that's great. Like, and then on the flip side, it's like, you talked about this 6 months ago and I did hop on the trend. And I'm so glad I did because I love this piece and I never would have known about it had not been for my report or whatever. So I feel like all my videos and stuff, like my intention is to arm people with knowledge to make the best decision that they can make. And that's why I always talk about like personal style too, is people are always going to buy trends. Trends are never going to not exist. It's just the fact of capitalism and the fashion industry that pulls in billions of dollars a year. Like, they're not going to stop. So it's better to change the narrative of, look, you're not stupid. You don't dress bad if you participate in trends. Just be mindful and think about, are they your personal style? Can you wear them 30 different times? Like, are you going to actually get your wear per dollar for this item that you want to participate in? Don't like, and I agree with you about the Shein thing, because I feel like when things are priced so low like that, something switches in your brain where it's like, this is disposable now and I can just buy it and it's like nothing. But something that I've done, because I still thrift, I still, buy things that are cheap. Like, I'll lowball on eBay. It's like my favorite thing to do. But it doesn't, like, my mindset has just changed where it doesn't matter how much something costs. I think about it as an investment, no matter what. Like, it could be $20, it could be $400. That is an investment that I'm intentionally bringing into my wardrobe. And that's really like my message with pretty much everything I talk about. Like, wear whatever you want. Seriously, if it's a trend, if it's not, like, if it's chuggy, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you think about it as like a long-term thing that you're gonna love and treat with respect.
100%. Like, everything you're saying resonates so much. And I think this mindfulness that you carry with your content is so, one, hard to come by on TikTok, because, as you know, people like the shitposting content and like shitposting culture on TikTok makes it so even content feels disposable. But like what you really are creating is super like substantial, and I know it's gonna like stand the test of time. And I'm sure, I mean, look, I was going through your archive and I was like, damn, I'm learning about things that she was posting about like last year in like May that I didn't even know existed, but now it's like the wheels are turning. I'm like, I should hit the Real Reel or something and check it out and see if I, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
it just, yeah, it's a testament to that. I'm sure though you get like a fair amount of negative comments about trends that you're reporting on and stuff. Like everyone has an opinion. Like, did you start to experience, or I guess I should really ask, like, how has like feedback on TikTok affected your work? Like, do you feel like you listen to negative comments, or how do you see them in relationship to the work you do?
So, let's see, where do I even start? I had a video go viral last summer, and it was the first time I ever got like dozens of death threats like in my inbox, and they weren't necessarily like, they weren't like kill yourself.
Yeah,
they were more like take your toaster to your bed, like
random,
my
God,
kind of like beating around the bush. And of course, like I know most of them were empty, but it was kind of like weird to experience that, and it actually has changed the way that I make my content. I again, like sometimes like indiesleaze, for example, that video took on a life of its own because that was not really even about fashion completely. It was more about like people are calling it the vibe shift now.
Yeah.
And that's what I have pivoted to talking about. I've also changed, like, it's not always fashion. Like I talked about an editorial prediction, like a photography style, stuff like that, where it's not just about like the clothing, because for some reason, like people get very like, I don't know. I guess it's polarizing, but it's also like, if you don't like it, you don't have to, no one's telling you to. And something very dangerous, I think, with TikTok and like shortening attention spans, people are talking that might be happening, is this like, I feel like nuance has gone to die on TikTok and on short form content, where, you know, people think in black and white and almost like can't critically think about what they're consuming.
Exactly.
So I'm much, much more mindful about providing as much nuance as I possibly can. And if people have issue with it, I tell them to watch it again. Yeah. And that makes them mad too. But it's like, you didn't hear me the first time. Please just watch this again.
That's so fair though.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I will say, get it, you know, like being on the app for a year, being one of like the OG fashion commentators.
You really are. Like, you seriously like led so many people to TikTok to even want to like create a space to talk about fashion the way you do.
Yeah, I'm glad for it too. And how people are a lot more mindful, because that's basically the whole point of my page. But
if you guys couldn't hear me over the toaster comments,
right?
Like, what?
It's really just about being mindful, and like I will arm people with knowledge from my research, from like simply reiterating to shop mindfully, consume mindfully, just wear what you want. But I also am not gonna stop posting what I care about. I think like what I try to do whenever I make my videos and write my scripts is approach it as if a beginner was watching it. Because I'm not here to prove that I know everything, because guess what? I don't. If you've worked in fashion or any industry, any like industry within the arts or even not the arts, it's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to be an expert in every specific area. I'm knowledgeable in a couple of areas. I'm not knowledgeable in many other areas. Like my references, I'm not that great with references. I have a handful of designers that I know I could bet my life on if I saw them out in the wild, but that is not my specialty whatsoever. I'm more versed in fashion history and like how culture interacts with fashion, and of course trend history. Yeah. But all the other areas, no, I'm not an expert in. And I think it's like something that turned me off in the beginning when I was a beginner was feeling this like elitism, like this elitist energy. Yeah. So that's why when I make my content and write my scripts, I am trying to do it in a way that a beginner could understand. And somebody who's much more versed in it could like, of course, engage with as well.
Right.
But like I think my content has done well because it's approachable, and I'm not like judging people for not knowing, and like happy to explain, you know, like I I don't know.
I think you do a great job, and you know, it's really cool to see how mindful you are of the feedback you get, and I think that shows just how like empathetic you are towards your viewers and the people that watch you and care. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm very team you in the sense that like I think it's important that you express your interpretations of it, because that's the point of fashion anyways, right? Like the show wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for people having opinions on clothes. And the fact, and it does go back to this idea of like everyone needs to just get off their high horse, drink a matcha, chill out for a second, meditate, and then actually look at clothing and tell me you feel as intensely as you did when you were watching the video. Because the truth is it's just a garment. And this is something that another guest said before was like, for God's sake, it's just clothes. Like the fact that it could bring people to such dark places. I understand how heavy fashion can really feel to a lot of people, but just know you've been doing things more mindfully and incredibly, and
Thanks.
I don't think you have to stress about
Thanks.
a thing, but I think it just shows who you are as a person.
Thank you.
Of course. Which it kind of actually leads me into, you know, something that I really love about what you talk about online, and recently you've talked about it quite a bit. You've really shed light on like body exclusivity in fashion, and that's something that I like snaps, because it's something, as you know, is still taboo, weirdly enough, even though a lot of major publications and fashion people will turn it into a point to monetize, truthfully, and they'll try to pivot their businesses to that. What steps do brands need to take in your eyes to make the future of fashion more accessible? Or how have you seen these issues arise now? And like, how can we really push towards that? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
A great step would be to make clothes oversize XL.
T.
Hello. A lot of brands don't feel like it's what's the word? Hold on, I'm trying to think. A lot of people think that they're not going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have to say to that is, how do you expect plus size folks to trust your brand if you've never made plus size clothing? It's going to take time to build that trust and to gain that customer base. It's not going to happen overnight. Like,
100%.
And these brands will hide behind that, where it's like, well, we did a capsule collection with size 1X to 3X and it didn't sell. Guess the fuck what? You weren't marketing it right.
Yes.
You weren't putting the effort and photography behind it like you do with straight size clothing and editorials. And then you have, this is obviously like, I'm very passionate about this, because I wouldn't have learned about how frustrating this is without being on TikTok and listening to plus size folks. Because guess what? My experience as a straight size person like really doesn't matter, but I can give a voice to this and use my platform to elevate their voices. And something that I picked up by having these conversations with plus size folks is the Paloma Miu Miu micro mini skirt on the ID cover. I was like so happy to see that, because Paloma is at the top of her game as a model, not a plus size model, as a model.
Yes.
And Miu Miu made that custom.
Yeah.
No, like somebody who's Paloma's size, which by the way, she would be considered mid-size. She's not really, she's not plus size.
Exactly.
But as a model, she's considered plus size because she's not straight size. And by straight size, I mean a size 2 or 4.
Yes.
And they made that skirt custom for her. That is performative.
100%.
That is performative. You like, they are doing that to show that they quote care and can cater to a size 16 maybe, but you can't go buy it. You got to order it custom, and that's performative.
100%. If you could change anything about the fashion industry, what would it be right now? Big and daunting question, but
I mean, since we're on the topic, I would say not just include more plus size bodies, but hire them, pay them. Like you need fit models, you need spokespeople, you need consultants.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I would say probably, I mean, that really needs to happen. And like, here's the thing, I forget the exact statistic, but I think the plus size industry as it stands right now is like a $26 billion industry, and that's largely fast fashion.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like they haven't even scratched the surface, and to say it's not going to sell is bullshit.
Because it's obviously selling everywhere else.
Right. Because you need to put the time in to get plus size folks to trust you.
Yeah.
is, I think, and again, I don't want to overstep my boundaries as a straight size person speaking on this behalf, but I do feel like it's important to use whatever like influence and voice I have to advocate for it, because I do really care.
Yeah.
And I want to see it too, because here's my criticism with Miu Miu. Again, I love Miu Miu. They're one of my favorite brands, but if you can't be critical about your faves, I think grow up. Honestly, like,
fair.
They're not
Snaps
always going to do what you want them to do. You're not always going to like it just because it's this like designer you really like. At least that's how I feel. And I think like they are an example where it's like, at least put it on like a curvier body on the runway. Even if that is like a size 4, like show some hip or some chest. Like, I don't know, something would be great. Like, I want fast fashion to just like cease to exist, but I also understand there's a huge need for it, like with accessibility, again, with the size inclusion, with price. But it makes me very uncomfortable. And I haven't bought fast fashion in 3 years. While I understand the need for it, the waste makes me deeply uncomfortable. Yeah. And fashion is a deeply flawed industry. Just because I love it does not mean I love the industry. I don't. I actually hate the industry. Like, it's very wasteful. It's like killing the earth. I mean, you said this podcast is not depressing, so I'm not going to try not to go there.
But the point is, like, we need the little like glimpses into reality too. No, it's completely fair. And I mean, I think everything you're saying and everything you do really just feeds into like what the future of fashion should look like. Yeah. And it's more mindfulness around brands we're consuming. We're not giving in to just like marketing, strictly marketing, because I think that it goes back to this like brainwashed idea that a brand can do no wrong. As we know, that is not true. And you should never feel that way about any brand. You should always hold your brands that you love accountable. And no, I mean, all of your criticisms are so valid. I think you know best. Honestly, you know the most. And that's why I would say, and I know you don't like to put yourself on that pedestal, but I can say as a consumer, you're one of the few people I watch. And I know regardless of, any opinions that you make very clear what is like your opinion and what you have like sourced as fact. And I learned so much from what you say and do, and it allows me to consume differently. Like, for instance, let's go into the bow again. I don't want to pivot down this hole too far, but I was at a boutique in Greenwich and I saw these bows and I was like, hell yeah, moment. It's a hair clip that I think only works if you like part your hair and do a hair tie because it sits on something, but there were a few different, there were a few different like prints and things going on, and my boyfriend was actually really into them. He's like, "Do you like the bow? I think it's a cool bow." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I do." He's
it's
like,
a cute bow.
Oh, thank you. If it gets your stamp approval, I'm thrilled. And so I was looking and I'm like, you know what? I love all the prints, obviously, but like realistically, what am I going to wear and what am I going to continue to wear and what's going to go with the most? And so I wear it the most. Goes back to that wear thing, like you were saying. And this ain't no cheap bow, y'all. This is a real deal bow. Like, this is an investment piece, believe it or not. And, I was like, there was one with like had the little details. I had like a stitching and I'm like, it's cute. But truthfully, I don't know. 6 months from now, I have no idea. I can honestly say that I might put this in a closet for 3 months and then bring it back out and be like, I like you. You're coming with me. You're being worn to this wedding or you're doing that, So kudos, because I wouldn't think about it that way if it wasn't for also your trend reporting on things with bows, which we're going to get into right now, you guys. We're going to dive into the trend stuff because you've inspired me with all of this work. But if we can just get into it, if you don't mind, I would love to just ask you also the process of like figuring out what a trend is, right? What does the process of identifying a trend look like to you? And is that always the same every time, or do you feel like it just emerges, or you notice it in patterns? Like, how do you analyze a trend, or where do you even start?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give away all my secrets.
Please don't. We love the mystique.
You guys got to pay for that. No, but I think there's two like major things that even like anyone can start doing if you want to be more observant about what's happening in the industry. But of course, look to the runway. That's like the number one historical way people and other brands figure out what they're going to make and sell. Yeah. However, the runway is not dictating consumer trends anymore solely. I think that's more from like a retail perspective in a way, but like thrifting and secondhand and vintage are so, like, they've never been bigger, actually. I think the industry itself has, like, tripled since, like, last year. And it's just insane, the growth that's playing into the secondhand economy. We love to see it.
We do. We really do.
But all that said is the runway is no longer the only place where consumer trends are happening. And I think a lot of them do come from, like, smaller subcultures. And that's another thing with, like contemporary and modern just, like, culture is the almost, like, segregation and niched down algorithms we get served are so much more specific than they used to be. Like, if you're on fashion TikTok, you're probably only on, like main top tier fashion TikTok, and then your, like, very specific interests.
Super niche.
And there's, like, a whole other side that you probably don't see because the FYP doesn't think you're gonna like it or resonate with it or whatever. So I think that being said, a lot of trends are more focused into, like, specific subcultures and not necessarily on this, like, macro level. However, I think a few, if I can get into it, like, the resurgence of dresses over pants, I think has worked with, I've seen it with every single aesthetic. Minimalism, maximalism, fucking clowncore, avant basic, like, every aesthetic I've seen wear this trend. This is I would consider more of a macro trend because it fits into so many aesthetics and so many, like, different styles can wear it and participate in it. And guess what? You don't have to buy anything.
Love that for you guys.
You don't have to buy anything. You can just pair that with what you already have. You probably have pants. You probably have a dress. Like, or a skirt. I've seen the skirt over pants thing too. But that's a good one. That was both something we're seeing with just, you know, consumer trends and what's happening on the runway.
Right. No, 100%. Do you have any brands right now that you're truly obsessed? I mean, I want to, like, shout out businesses that you care about or, like, brands that you believe in. Like, are there any brands that really wowed you this season, or, like, people that you're seeing that kind of resonate with, like, or you're seeing, like, an overlap of trends, or maybe you're like, I like what they're doing, they're leading the way? Anything that comes to mind? I
think one of my favorite shows was Altazara in New York. I don't want to, I just look at it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Go look.
It was amazing. And they showed a lot of dresses over pants in, like, the most chic, like, luxurious way. And it had, like, a cozy feel too. And I was like, this is perfect for fall, winter. And then obviously, like, if you guys have seen my page, like, one time, you probably know I am an unofficial Chipotle Luena spokesperson.
Yes.
They have not acknowledged me yet, but they will.
Emphasis on yet.
Please, guys, if you are listening,
go send your
call
page
me.
to people. Thank you.
No, but the reason why I talk about them and I wear them and I hunt for them so feverishly is because I believe in that brand. Not only do they make amazing clothes, but their brand story is incredible. They went to Central St. Martin's. They're incredibly talented designers, but they source everything pretty much secondhand. Like, all their material is, like, dead stock. It's tartans sourced from Bulgaria. They're a Bulgarian. They're not, well, one of the founders is Bulgarian, but they're based in London.
Oh, cool.
But all their, like, little charms and trinkets are dead stock. Like, everything is made in, like, very short production runs. Like, it's very much like slow fashion to me, but that is also just so premium and amazing, and I'm obsessed with them. And I'm just, their whole, like, vibe and story and aesthetic just excites me because they definitely have the things like the carabiner skirt, the tartans, the huge puffy sleeves and volume that they stick with. But every season they show something new, different prints, like, even different fabrics, and just very, very exciting to me. So support them.
I'm excited about them. Damn, you guys like I said, the notebook is out. I'm hoping you're taking notes. We're going to actually take a quick break right now, but while we're gone, here's a word from a creator on Galaxy.
Hi, I'm Tess from Buki Vintage, and I sell colorful, funky, but wearable pieces on Galaxy. I got started selling secondhand because I love sharing the beauty and power of clothes with the world. I've been thrifting from a very young age and would find items that I loved, but that I wouldn't personally wear. So it only made sense for me to start up my own shop and share the beauty of vintage and thrifted clothes with the world. I can't remember the very first thrift item I purchased because my dad took me from a very young age because he works in clothing and retail, but I loved sharing those bonding experiences with him and finding funky pieces that none of my classmates would wear. The craziest item I ever found in a thrift haul was a perfect 70s daisy print maxi dress, perfect condition, looks like it came straight out of a movie, and I felt so blessed finding it. I like being my own boss because I love controlling what I do, what I sell, and at the time that I want to do it. I also feel like I'm a big personality, so sometimes it's good for me to just manage myself. My advice to anyone that wants to start selling is to really curate items that you love. I started to sell items that I thought other people would wear, and then I kind of got lost in like what that meant. And I think that people can really see your personality from what you want in your shop. Selling secondhand clothing makes me feel good because I know that I'm contributing to reducing the amount of waste in landfills. I'm giving cute clothes to cute people, and I'm providing a life for myself in the most sustainable way that I possibly can. Shop my store at shopgalaxy.com/bukivintage.
To dive into like some trendy things though that you've set the world, I don't know if set the world ablaze is the right term. I mean, you have definitely sparked some chatter on the interwebs regarding some trends that you've predicted, and we've seen come completely into fruition, whether or not it was just like a small, like they were resurging or whatever. Indiesleaze comes to mind immediately. I know that's probably like a buzzword in your head now, and you're like, I've only heard it 500 times this week. But that one especially rang true because, I mean, we just go back to like Tumblr era, like sourcing of all of these like aesthetic photos and just this like this grunge underground energy that like has truly come back up in so many ways. Like I said before, though, it's like I feel like in New York we see a lot of it regardless, but to see it on like a larger scale is pretty interesting. Do you feel like though most of the trends that you're reporting on are recurring themes from the past or like blasts from the past, or is some of it fresh and new? I feel like there's this idea, and we know this to not be true, that all fashion needs to be new and different, when in reality it's such a recycling of ideas. Like, do you feel like a lot of it is like things that you've seen before, or even 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
I do. But also, like, what is new? What is considered new? Like, how can something be like completely new and different unless it's like super avant-garde, like surrealist, like Loewe is a good point of reference. Like they do weird shit in Comme des Garçons. They always show like new crazy silhouettes, but people aren't going to wear that every day necessarily. Like that's not really something you would see people buy into to the point where it becomes like a trend. I think there's always like room for new interpretations and new ideas. Like even with Y2K, that's happening currently, probably at its peak. It's not copy paste because, again, the culture from 20 years ago does not just copy paste when a new aesthetic happens, like, or when an aesthetic has a resurgence. And I feel like a lot of people forget that. One trend that I think the thing that I got the most hate for was bloomers,
which I loved, by the way. That was actually something that like brought it really gave me this like biker short energy, but like it was elevated. I think you might have even said this, like elevated biker short. There was something about it was just like people didn't want to people were so resistant. I saw the hate.
People still
I was
make troll video. I saw a troll video I got tagged in this morning about it. Yeah, that was like in August.
I cannot.
Also. And it's like you talking about it just is going to make it happen.
It's solidifying it existing.
And what's hilarious is Barbie Ferreira has worn them, Dua Lipa has worn them, so it's like
it's happening.
I hate to be right,
but also we love to be right.
But
too,
also
though.
that you buy that on Etsy or Depop, like you can get that. That is like mainly only sold secondhand, which we love. Definitely got the most hate for that. That's where I've actually like started addressing it on my page, because I think I was like so in shock for so long, because again, that was in August, dude. Like
That
August.
was a and you're still being tagged and stuff.
No, literally,
That's absurd
like
to me.
on my way here. But again, I think that's like what is new, and people get very, very upset where they're like, this has existed already, like this is already happening, and it's like, no shit.
That's why we're talking about it.
But like how, okay, let's take like suits for example, right? People have been wearing suits for literally hundreds of years.
Yeah.
It's not about the suit being new, it's about the fit, or what's being paired with the suit, or what shoes you're wearing with the suit, or the tailoring, or the material. Like those are the little things that change and evolve over time. It's not just the suit.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, I mean, people, it's funny because you get criticism for talking about anything that's new and weird, but when you talk about things that are already in the cycle, that are just getting an upgrade with styling or fabrics or something, you get called stupid. So it's like you can't really win.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I would say most trends are some kind of revival, or has to do with a difference in styling, fabrication, fit, those types of things. Because what can actually be new that actually holds and lasts?
Right. And then what can those trolls even tell you? What would they ever say is right or good? Truth is, nothing's good enough, because there is going to be no technical newness in their eyes. Like,
unless they love it.
Right. And then that goes back to the fact that, like, this is all up for interpretation. So why the hell are you freaking out on the internet? It just a spiral. But no, thank you for breaking that down.
Sure.
I'd also love to break down some of your terms that I've learned from your page that are not necessarily, I know you coined, I have to say, let's go down this one. You, in my opinion, coined some of these things that then go viral as, like, in quotes, these titles. Like, you really are the pioneer, in my humble opinion, for some of these terms. Like, do you mind if we break down a couple of them and you could take me down the rabbit hole of, like, info? Okay, cool. So first one, I'm sorry, last time I'll bring it up, indie-sleaze.
Yep. So I actually didn't, that was not like, I did not name that, but actually an editor at, I think it was Mashable, did this like deep dive where she figured out where it came from.
Really? Oh, wow.
Because I kept telling people, because I've been interviewed on that, I've actually had to like take that keyword out of my inbox because I still get emails about it, and I can't be doing 5 interviews a day about it. And also everything that needs to be said is already out there.
It's out there, yeah.
The Dazed piece was probably my favorite.
Cool.
For anyone wanting a reference, Daniel Rogers wrote it. And we kind of became friends after that. But yeah, indiesleaze was actually created by the Instagram account indiesleaze, who had like 500 followers.
Which I saw. Now they're like a thing.
No, now she's like huge. Yeah. But basically, this is how indiesleaze was tracked. I didn't track this. I think Rachel from Mashable did.
Okay.
Olivia at indiesleaze on Instagram came up with that in early 2021. It got on Kari, which is something I reference. It's the Consumer Insights Research Institute. It's a nonprofit that catalogs aesthetics, not just fashion. Cool. It's mostly design.
Oh, sick.
And then I pulled the name from there. My video goes viral. Everyone writes about it.
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
Gotcha. That's how the universe was built around it.
Yeah.
Wow.
When and before we finish this segment, something that trend forecasters and researchers do is name the aesthetics. Yeah. Go on WGSN, go on Fashion Snoops. This is just what happened. This is an industry trend within a trend, if you could say.
Yeah.
But that's how you track things. Right. And something hilarious about naming aesthetics is I always search before I post something to see the impact. indiesleaze had 14 Twitter mentions before I posted that video. Now it's got, I don't even know how many, but even on Google, it had like maybe a page or two.
Yeah.
Now it's just hundreds,
endless
millions of results.
Tags, mentions, yeah.
And it's become, that's one that's one of those things that has become way bigger than me. Possibly like the only thing, like I've talked about the Tumblr aesthetic and that kind of thing. I've talked about a lot of things that have like gotten a lot of traction in mainstream media, but indiesleaze is the one that is way bigger than me. It's not even associated with me anymore.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll use my video as like the reference point, but like that is something that's bigger than me. I mean, The Cut wrote an article about the vibe shift and they didn't even credit me.
Wow.
So it's like it's past that
Yeah.
now, and I can't say I mind.
Okay,
You know?
there we go. Retro-inspired futurism. I say that and I see something in my head, and it's something I've seen before, but I would never know that, you know? It's like, it almost like brings back these memories of shows, and you're like, wait a second. This is a real thing. Of course it is, because it sparks all of these things in your head, and it just brings back, I don't know, it really gives perspective on what you're interpreting when you're interpreting fashion. But can I ask you about that one too? Yeah, retro-inspired futurism.
Yeah, retrofuturism. I mean, again, I did not come up with
Yeah,
that.
that one's pretty, I feel like that one I've seen quite a bit.
That's a 60s inspired aesthetic during the space race. So when there was like the race to get to the moon, it affected everyday consumers, and people had this like vision of what the world would look like. I think about the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Like this
Oh
like
my
funky, like futuristic world.
Yeah.
And people did incorporate those like silhouettes, and the colors like metallics had a big moment.
Oh my God.
But it was like a lot of futurism with 60s silhouettes, like little shift dresses. The mini skirt was invented around the same time.
Right.
That was probably one of the biggest trends I saw on the fall-winter 2022 runway this season.
Oh yeah.
And like surrealism too. I think the two kind of go hand in hand, because retrofuturism was like, it was a kind of avant-garde, like people sort of dressing like astronauts in like a fashion forward way, and courage with their little like, you could compare them to balaclavas, like the little like point at the top, and like suits or cat suits. So you see all this like 60s inspiration being reinterpreted in like modern day. And I saw a lot of people at the end of last year, this is like something I noticed the year before too, but a lot of like just regular fashion accounts will do trend predictions. And I saw the kind of like novice accounts doing cat suits. Like every single video was cat suits. And that's a trend directly from retrofuturism when it was quite popular. But you see a lot of 60s influence right now. But I mean, like, I made a video to like connect that together because it's true. Like they are right about that, but it's kind of coming from this more overarching area in fashion that everyone is sort of like referencing right now. Courage has been doing it for many, many years, and their show this season was like very geometric and angular, like really, really cool. But they've been doing that futurism thing, and like Paco Rabanne is also a big one that just always has some element of futurism
for
incorporated.
sure, especially metallic. I feel like the metallic like dress, like pant, like the what's it called? Those like mirror
the
dresses and
chainmail.
stuff.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah. My last term I really want to ask you about, which I literally have like, I feel like I'm in a tutu in my head when I think about this, but Parisian ballet and the shoes, specifically, was it the Miu Miu ballet flats?
It was the Simone Rocha ones.
Oh,
Yeah, people hated that too.
did they?
Yeah, but now they love it.
See,
they hated me talking about it, but they
exactly. I think
love it
they
now.
like to pin it on the person talking about it. Yeah, give me the tea on that.
That was August.
What's up with August being
It was
this
the same,
like
dude, it was the same video. I did like 3. It was oversized suits, checks out.
wow.
Iterations on ballet flats, checks out, and bloomers, checks out. It all checks out, but that's the video that like traumatized me.
Wow. I mean, I understand though. There's probably like when these things grow bigger, like you were saying, bigger than me. Is that like a feeling of overwhelm when you realize how they blow up, or does it take the weight off at least of like the feedback you get? Like,
I mean, it's honestly kind of satisfying.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I was fucking accurate.
Yeah.
And I haven't started doing this. There's this account I follow. She reminds me of my account a little bit, but she's like a marketing genius, a girl boss town. So I feel like I'm the fashion version of her, and she's more like marketing. And she does this really fun, very satisfying type of video where she'll stitch herself when she's right. And I started doing it recently because I'm like, you know what? Like, I deserve to like put my credibility on like full display, because not everyone's just like reading Dazed or reading ID and seeing what's like being written about my forecasts. Like, people aren't Googling my old loser in Brooklyn and seeing the content that gets written about me. So I'll show you.
Yeah.
And like, I made this video about Julia Fox's eye look.
Yes.
And how like, no, she didn't invent
the
editorial makeup, no shit. But that image, just like her wearing it, became like a point of reference. I'm not saying like she wrote it, but that look is like accelerating indie sleaze in
100%.
the makeup department. Guess who wrote about it 2 days after that video? British fucking Vogue. They copy paste basically. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put this on my page.
As you
like,
should.
Y'all want to see like proof or whatever? Like, people always say that. Proof. Show me. Like,
proof. It's like the proof is in the pudding. No, it's okay. The proof is in the pudding. I'm like, I don't know. It's like people just don't want to hear it when it's not there yet, because there's this idea of like, you don't know better than I know. And it's like, well, I don't hear you talking about things you think are gonna blow up. Sorry. Like, maybe you should put out your opinions and we'll see if that works out. Like, just so chaotic. But no, that one specifically was so interesting, because then runway trends, really, you started to see like, not that we don't see like a dark smoky eye on a runway, but to say like,
of course,
I don't think there's a coincidence there. I think it's just, it shows there is like some sort of influence, whether or not it was her or just people subconsciously getting that feedback from that image. Like, there's so much that feeds into why we see those trends happen. But I like
Versace does a smoky eye every season. Every season. You know who doesn't? Chanel. And what did Chanel show on their last couture show? A fucking smoky black eye. They took it too far. They were trying too hard. But like, rarely see that type of bold, exaggerated look on a Chanel runway. So it doesn't surprise me, the timing of it.
Oh, no.
And here's the thing. Do I think that's a reference to me and my trend prediction? No. But it's just a piece of the like, quote, vibe shift that I've been talking about. So like, trust me, I'm not walking around here thinking Chanel is inspired by, like, that's not what goes through my head. Because that's just, first of all, it's weird. But also, like, my forecasts are more about like like they're the intersection of fashion and culture, right? So again, that's something I've shifted my content to focus more about, is like the cultural aspect, and focusing kind of less on like specific pieces. I think that's where I've gotten in trouble in the past. But yeah, it's more about like this overall energy and and less about the clothes themselves.
Right. For sure. I love that. So how has like sustainability played a part in the work you do? Like, do you feel like trend forecasting has given you insight on like how important it is to be environmentally conscious in fashion? Or like, what kind of like symbiotic relationship do you see there? How have you like interpreted it, at least?
Well, you can take sustainability as a trend almost.
Right. And that's another question. I'm like, do you think sustainability is a trend?
No, I don't, because I'm also a climate optimist. I think once you get to be a pessimist about the climate and environmentalism, it's not going to be fun for you. No. Like, you need to have optimism and like work towards doing what you can, because trust me, I've been in that cycle where it's like, this is hopeless. Like, we're going to be on fire in a few years, and you can't think that way. And sustainability is not a trend, because Gen Z and millennials specifically, I think it was a Forbes study that got released a couple of months ago. It was like 73% of Gen Z and millennials prioritize purchasing something that has sustainability tied to it. Whether that's thrifting, whether that's supporting a brand, whether that's just being more mindful of what they're purchasing. 73% of Gen Z and millennials are thinking with a more sustainable lens when they're purchasing something. That's significant. And it's true, like, Boomers and Gen X still have a lot of buying power, but in 10 years, Gen Z will have a lot larger share of that buying power.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, when brands like Zara just like do literally like one thing and then call themselves like a sustainable brand, or like we have sustainable efforts. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, and also Gen Z and millennials, after spending so much of their life on the internet, are harder to fool, and they're also harder to market to. And that's why like everything from social media strategists to branding experts will tell you need to be genuine or you're not going to sell. So you have Shein, which tantalizes people with their low prices. Zara can't just like lie to people. Their prices aren't that cheap, where people who want that sustainable factor will just be like fooled into going there.
So true.
So no, I don't think sustainability is a trend. And I think like everyone needs to think about it in like a bigger, more like social change type of way, because being like a climate pessimist is really not fun.
No, it guarantees a miserable existence too. Yeah. I also know you're really into like reselling and, you know, that's market. What really got you into that, I guess? And also like, what's the importance of like archive fashion to you? Like, how does this all play into what you do?
So I'm not really like, I don't really care that much about like archive fashion. It's not really like, I like collecting from specific brands,
right? But
it doesn't really like, I don't really seek out like, I want, you know, Simone Rocha 2010 or whatever. And people, I think like who are newer to fashion, like I'm mostly thinking of like 19-year-old boys, will think that like they buy, you know, like one archive, however you define that. Like people call like 2003.
Yeah.
Well, people will call 2003 like an archival piece or whatever.
Right.
And like, I don't consider that archive really. And I think people use archive and just like designer interchangeably. But again, like I'm not a snob about that really.
Well,
so
that's also
like,
more just factual. Yeah, what you see is like factually true or not.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I collect from specific designers, not super picky about what show it is, because I want to be able to wear it.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's like I'm collecting from 2010 and I don't like half the things, why would I do that? So I'm more, I guess I'm more purchased for like what I'm interested in. Like right now, I would say, I really am interested and inspired by like specific fabrics. Like I love tulle. I love cozy sweaters. I love tartan. I've always loved tartan. I love a big collar. I love a Peter Pan collar. Like, why did I stop wearing Peter Pan collars for a few years? Like that's a newer revelation I've had, where it's like, this is one of my favorite, cutest things like ever. And I stopped wearing it because I didn't think it was like cool anymore. And I'm like, fuck that. Like, no, I saw a comb tartan blazer at Tokyo 7 that had a Peter Pan collar. And I was like, you're coming home with me. Like, I probably wouldn't have bought this a year ago because of the collar, but I'm not, but I'm like, that's something I love.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm also not trying to buy a lot right now because I feel like I have no control over the state of my room and my organization. So I actually have been doing more of like a cull. And I think I've always been interested in resale and shopping secondhand since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Just because, again, like 15 years ago, thrifting was like not like something you talked about. It was really rooted in like classism and, you know, you were poor by default if you, because that was the original intent of secondhand stores, but that's changed a lot. And now it's like a lot of people who care about sustainability, trying to save things from the landfill, trying to upcycle things. So I like that too. Yeah. But also, like, if you want to find something unique or something, you know, that inspires you that you might not be able to find it or want to spend a ton of money on, I would recommend that's a good place to start.
100%.
And then I've seen people like upcycling sheets and like blankets and stuff from the thrift. I'm that is so fucking cool. Like, I don't know. The creativity in the secondhand market does really inspire me. But yeah, I don't know. Like everything I list for sale and stuff is like, I'm very sure that this belongs to somebody that can give it a better life than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I try to treat my clothes. It's like, they're not disposable. If I feel the need to like pass something on, I want it to go to a good home.
Right. No, of course. I think that's just, it's not about like, all right, you're done. It's like, no, what's next for you?
Right. Totally.
Yeah. And I feel like you probably already make really educated purchases to begin with. Like you said, like you're not trying to shop so much right now. And that's an educated purchasing decision because you're deciding not to purchase and there's a reason for it. That's really meaningful.
There is though, like the sweater. I actually wore this today on purpose. This is a Paloma wool like swirl sweater that everyone has.
Yeah.
People probably think that or consider this sweater a micro trend.
Really?
Just because it was so popular like a year or a year and a half ago. I bought this sweater when I was like sort of thinking about the idea. Maybe I like the avant basic aesthetic. Maybe that's for me. I quickly realized it was not for me. But this is something that I picked up during that like phase. It was probably the last time I was like really heavily like I think I want to like reinvent myself or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is ever really a good idea for the long term.
And not everything is broken. We can't fix everything.
Yeah. But I held on to it because I actually really like this sweater.
It's a sick sweater.
And I don't think it's like super one aesthetic or another.
No.
And I think you can play with it in different ways.
Yeah.
And this is just something that I bought because I thought it was trendy that I've actually grown to really like. And I don't know. It's a staple of mine now. And I can't imagine my closet without it.
It's amazing. I can tell it's like taken care of really well. And I love how you paired it with this. I guess, would you consider this a Peter Pan collar dress?
No, it's like I don't know what, it's like more of a point than a Peter Pan, but it's like it's a Ghani dress from their sustainable line.
Cool. It's so cool. I like just like the contrast too. And yeah, it's like playing, it just goes back to like having fun with it, and it could cross boundaries. It doesn't have to fit into one box, and all the titles are really just to like help people create like some sort of identity around like the things they're seeing in this like broad way. No, I'm obsessed with it. I think it was a great find.
But the point is, the sweater wasn't marketed to my personal style necessarily. Like I couldn't picture it the way it was styled, but that's sometimes you need a little imagination to picture it like on you. If you get in tune with that, I think it can be really, really helpful. Because I don't know, you can find good stuff pretty much anywhere if you are in tune with that.
Right. No, 100%. Oh, I love it. It's sick. I know we touched a little bit on micro trends. What is a micro trend in your eyes? And then just to follow up with that, do you have a favorite trend, least favorite trend moment right now? Like, where's your head at with all of it?
I think a micro trend is just like a very simple way of saying something that doesn't sustain itself in the trend cycle for very long. Because everything, even a classic item like a blazer or a straight leg pant, is part of the trend cycle. It just is a constant, so it has no dip essentially. And I think a micro trend would be something that reaches its peak and then goes into obsolescence very quickly. Sometimes you can recognize them, sometimes you can't. And a lot of the time it's these concepts of what lasts and what doesn't revolves around revolves around agreed upon acceptance. And acceptance is actually what drives the trend cycle.
Really? That's so interesting. So something that like could appear to be a micro trend could pivot into a real trend, like without knowing maybe?
Yeah, but it also could drive it into obsolescence just as fast. And that's why language like chuggy is so dangerous, because it drives the acceptance down quicker than something that if you just left it alone and let it have its moment would be a lot longer. But I think that, and that's like a basic rule of the trend cycle, is actually the like second part. It's a 5-part cycle, and the second part, while it's like kind of on the rise, is called acceptance.
Oh, wow. So we really control a trend cycle more than we realize. Like language and comment. Wow. It just goes back to how like important language and commentary is around this stuff, because you could very well be the reason why a trend like Parisian ballet like influence like stays around, because it's like the conversation around it, like curating or cultivating this like following around it or fan base of it, could be the reason why the fast fashion pieces that get produced during that time don't end up in a landfill or don't end up I'm spiraling now. Sorry guys, but that's really, really interesting to me.
I have 2 rules on my platform. I don't talk about trends I hate.
Okay,
doesn't
fair.
mathematter. I've reported on trends I hate, but you wouldn't know it.
Right.
Because I'm not putting that out there. Although I will say, you know, those pants from Amazon that are like mesh with diamonds on them.
Yes, that people are putting over jeans.
I hate those because I know they're going to rip in one wear, and they make me sad because
That's facts,
that
actually.
It's just a net.
Yeah.
Like, and it's from Amazon. Like,
there's a lot there, yeah.
I would say anything that looks and is treated as disposable is a trend I don't like.
That's so fair.
That's more me being judgmental about those specific pants, but like I look at them and I'm like, those are gonna rip once you sit down. Damn.
But that's a fair that's a completely fair analysis of it as well. It's like, all right, I don't want to invest in pieces that I know are not going to exist that long for me, and I know are just going to exist somewhere else with no purpose at all.
Yeah.
That's so fair. I think that's a fair criticism, of course.
Yeah, I think that just goes back into like the disposable thing. I don't like to buy things and treat them as disposable.
Yeah.
And I don't like to see things that look disposable.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for people that like find inspiration within current fashion trends but want to create a like sustainable closet or approach it in a sustainable way?
Sleep on it, man. Sleep on it. Don't pull the trigger like the second you see something good. And also, if you are impulsive and you're going to do it anyway, think about 5 to 10 different ways you'd wear something. Yeah. How would you style it with the closet you have? And buying a bunch of things to make this piece fit in does not count. If you can't do that, hold off and just wait for something else to come along that fits what is in your closet already. That's a mistake that trust me, I've made tons of mistakes to get to where I am and to get to a place where I'm comfortable with my closet and I'm happy and proud of my consumption patterns. And that is a mistake I've made many times where it's like, this is cute, I'm going to buy it. And then it arrives to me and I don't know how the fuck to wear it.
Yeah.
Or I can only wear it one way, or I can only wear it if I buy this type of shoe or jacket. Like, no. And then if you continuously purchase like that, before you know it, and it does take time to curate your closet, but before you know it, everything goes together.
Yeah.
Everything in you can't put a bad outfit together when you like everything you have. Seriously.
It's like, so true.
And that, again, it comes with time. But that's, I think, my best advice. And also, I put up a poll on my Instagram story the other day because I almost didn't post a picture of me wearing this dress that I've worn in like 3 of my other Instagram pictures. And I was like, wait, but I like this picture and I love the dress. Why? Like, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
People are afraid to outfit repeat online. And you know what's wicked sad is like I got like 100 responses. And I would say over half of them were because they were afraid to look poor or afraid to like appear like they didn't have other clothes. And that makes me so fucking sad because it reminds me of how thrifting used to be thought of back in the day. And it's like all these ideas, and I'm actually doing a series on TikTok right now breaking down arbitrary fashion rules that are like outdated.
I love it, by the way. I've been watching already.
Thank you.
It's so good.
But if you've noticed a pattern, a lot of it is all rooted in classism and like the fear of appearing like you're poor or you don't have enough money for like clothes, like, and it's just sad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I will dig into that more because I think it's really it's heavy. That's a heavy realization to come to. And it's also profound. Those stories are profound and they're not just like they're not arbitrary, those stories.
Yeah, they're real. And it's just crazy how historically fashion has turned into this. And it goes back to like how fast we're consuming, and consumerism has shifted so much. And even 20 years, right? The amount that we're consuming now is like incomparable to what we were seeing pre-2000s, really. And it's just a reminder that like this new age of like broadcasting our fashion, it's up to us. It goes back to the trend acceptance. It's up to us to start the trend of normalizing outfit repeating. And we have to like kind of lead that conversation. And it sucks that it's even a conversation that needs to be had when in reality we should never be. It's really we're judging ourselves and then we reflect and judge on others because we feel that pressure. But no, thank you for talking about that. And I'm really excited to continue to watch the series.
Thanks.
I'm already loving it. I've been watching today. It's been awesome.
It's just crazy because like that is kind of like the root of half of these, like don't wear white after Labor Day, don't mix blue and black together. Yeah. Like they all come down to like these really upsetting judgments about class status.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, we need you to tell us about these things. And I'm so grateful that you're touching on all this. Guys, if you're not obviously watching Mandy's stuff on TikTok, go check out the series. It's already thriving and doing its thing. My last question is going to be, what is one piece that has stood the test of time?
The test of time? That's an interesting question. Probably handbags.
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever get sick of my handbags.
Are you a big handbag collector? Like, do you have a ton?
So actually this year I want to buy my first designer handbag. I don't know what it will be though. Because again, I like designer, but in a specific way. It's like, I like Courage, but I'm not like in the same way as I like Prada.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I don't know what it will be, but a lot of my bags are by like smaller designers. Like I have a Susan Alexander here with me today.
I love that bag. It's so cool. Yeah. Like just all the the clips are just special too.
Yeah. It's really functional too because it's like a crossbody like fanny pack type thing.
It's so sick.
But yeah, I think my bags are like all pretty like weird and funky, but they're all by, again, like smaller artists and emerging designers. So I haven't actually dropped a lot of money on any bag. And I think this year I want to buy my first, I think I want it to be a Miu Miu, maybe like 2012 collection bag. Ooh. But I don't know. I don't like care that much about it that I'm like hunting every day, but that's like a goal for this year.
It's like a more when you see the bag, you'll know it's the bag type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also big on like function too. So I would say like bags and coats are the things that will stand the test of time. Like the coat I wore today, it's a wool cape. I bought it for $7 and it's so like it's lined with silk. It's so nice.
Oh my God.
And it looks like I feel like an Upper East Side grandma in it. And I love that.
And you're powerful and you're a superhero in it too. There's like this duality.
But no one would know it was $7.
No, that's the other side of fashion that just shows like it has nothing to do with that, right? And the capitalist interpretation of it, it's just not about that. It's about like how you make it your own, and you've done that in so many ways. And I'm just like looking at the pieces you're wearing today, looking at all the stuff you've made. Like, thank you seriously for the work you do, because I think your perspective. No, like seriously, your perspective, I'm sure a majority of our like listeners and viewers, you know, they already know who you are, but the impact that your work has on people is more than you realize. And I think even on this like micro level, you're inspiring people to think outside the box. Like, honestly, if I'm being real and breaking down my fit, I felt more excited and like liberated today than I ever have on an episode when it comes to exploring something. Like, I felt like it almost felt borderline cosplay for me today, because I was like, wow, really? Like it's really it's a little outside of my style, but also things I own. So it's like, well, is it that different if it's mine? And I don't know how inspired I would have been to do that if it wasn't you sitting across the table. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, seriously. Nice. Well, you guys, if you don't know Mandy already or don't have her everywhere, please follow her. Can you share your handles with everyone so everyone can find you?
I'm Old Loser in Brooklyn on Instagram and TikTok. And I have a spam account on Instagram, Mood Board for Losers, where I just post like stuff on my camera.
Oh, wait, that's so sick. I love that. Oh, I gotta follow that.
It's basically just like my stories, but hard posted somewhere.
Oh my God, that's so fire. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be following that. Thank you. Now I have something new to follow.
Oh, and I also have a newsletter on Substack. It's called Cyclical, but it's also oldloserinbrooklyn.substack.com where I can, awesome. It's basically my writing for free.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Get on that, please. That's amazing. Thank you for being here today. I so appreciate you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Guys, this has been Finding Fashion. I hope you found some fashion during this episode, and I hope you found someone that you can look to find fashion with you. And before you guys leave, please make sure you follow Mandy on everything. Also, check out our live shows happening on shopgalaxy.com. You can follow Buy on Galaxy on Instagram for updates. And subscribe to Finding Fashion wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a review. Tell us your favorite piece that Mandy shared today. Give us a tea. Give us something. You can easily find me at Pojo on Instagram. If you want to get silly, it's at Pojo Jojo on TikTok. And this has been Finding Fashion, you guys. Thank you so much. Mandy, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys. See ya.